Yeah.
We'll start a new conversation.
So unprofessional after 2.5 years of doing
I mean,
this.
Siri went off last week for me with her own conversation. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. That was it. That was a good one. Well, pretend like I'm at the store and the phone's ringing, except it's a personal landline, which
That's
yes, we're
right.
that old and still have a landline. Oh, whatever.
Well, one of my books is a reference, really is a reference to landlines and the good old days.
Well,
actually, both of them are. So
maybe this was
it ties
kismet.
into that phone.
It was kismet there then. Okay, we are. Everybody have a good weekend. Good weekend.
Excellent.
Yeah. Good weather.
How about you?
San Diego wise. Yeah.
That was weather up here.
Beautiful weather.
Oh no,
It's
we're
hot.
in.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
We're complaining. I had my neighbor walked by with her dog. They have a little puppy, and she's like, "It's this beautiful day." And she's like, "Well, if I'm gonna complain, it's a little dry." And I'm going, "Okay, there's people like dying in like snow drifts, and we're complaining because it's a little dry."
I've been scratching all weekend, Jules. Scratching.
I have my nasal spray this week and keeping up with my nasal spray because of the
Life
time.
is tough. Life is tough.
I got a bloody nose the other day. I mean,
we
come
are
on, man.
so spoiled here in San Diego. I tell you what. All right. I think we're ready to go. So it's going to go Amanda, Gabe, Tom. So Amanda, take it away.
And I cannot share my screen. And I'm good? Okay. I have to say, this week was really hard to pick just 3 books for myself. I don't know why, but this week was really hard for me. But anyway, here we go. Books all out tomorrow. First one that I have up is Nobody's Magic by Destiny O. Birdsong. I mean, that's just a cool name in and of itself, I think. Let's start there. So she is an acclaimed poet, and this is a novel that she has written that focuses on 3 women with albinoism. 3 African-American women with albinoism in Shreveport, Louisiana. So we follow 3 women, Suzette, Maple, and Agnes. So Suzette is a pampered 20-year-old who's been super sheltered from the world. Maple is just reeling from the death of her mother, which still remains unsolved. And Agnes is just far from home in a whole new place. This is just beautifully written. It is so wonderful. It has been a lot of great reviews coming through, naming it the best book of February by the Washington Post. The New York Times says that this is the magic here is not the supernatural kind, but rather an attention to the grace of the ordinary. It is the magic of watching these women come into their own power. So super, super excited to have this one out tomorrow. Can't wait to have that on the shelves, and a beautiful cover to go with it as well.
Beautiful cover.
Excellent cover. Yeah, really good one. Fantastic. Good way to start us off.
Going strong.
Going strong. Okay, Gabe, follow that act.
I will follow it. Not as sexy a book as Amanda presented, but solid, classic in the genre. World War I, post-World War I, in between the wars. Ian Rutledge Mystery by Charles Todd, A Game of Fear. Real familiar name in the mystery world. I think people know who the Charles. They're actually a mother-son team, if you don't know, from somewhere in North Carolina.
I did not know that.
They are, and they're lovely, and they work together really well. And this is the bazillionth, I couldn't even tell you, for probably 20, somewhere near 20, if not at 20. Charles Todd books. We've been publishing them for a long time now. And, I'm a fan of historical fiction. I'm a fan of mysteries. There's not enough World War I stuff, between war stuff written for me. I really grew up reading all about the Germany and Italy and fascism in the 30s and the end of World War I. There's a big gap. So this kind of fills it for the historical fiction reader, but always a good solid mystery. And in this case, we have Ian Rutledge investigating a murder, a woman at a very Downtonish abbey, kind of a manor house, sees a violent murder perpetrated by someone who was in the military but's been dead for years, and when they go look for the body, there's no body. Dun-dun-dun-dun. So that's what we're looking at here. Cool, I guess I said period piece, always a solid mystery. And what happened? It's like the Vanishing Lady. You know, what is there a body? Did she vanish? Was there really somebody there? So he's playing off of some of a really, I think, a classic base of mystery, the missing corpse and what happened to it. So playing some fun, having some fun. Like I said, you know, plenty of paperbacks out there. They also do a series, the Bess Crawford Mystery Series, which is a female protagonist who is a nurse during the war and after the war. And what's up, Beth? And that's it. Enjoy.
Excellent. I did not know that Charlestown was a mother-daughter team. That's interesting. Love it.
Yeah, mother-son.
Mother-son. Mother-daughter. What was I? Sorry.
Well, Gabe, am I wrong? I thought the mother died, but no? No? Okay.
We're gonna do a little googly search on that one. Hi, Kim.
I thought I had heard that, but I don't know.
All right, Kim, you're gonna come in after Tom, okay?
Okay.
All right, should I jump in?
You can go, Tom.
Okay. So I have what I think is going to be one of the very best sellers at Warwick's for me this year, Love and Saffron, a novel of friendship, food, and love by Kim Fay. So
he did that.
There's so much.
Okay.
Sorry.
Really?
You're right.
Yeah.
I
Just very recently.
I must, you know, it's one of those that slipped my mind. There've been so many deaths this year. Good God.
But it was just in the last month, I think, right?
Hey, well.
Sorry to darken the mood here.
Okay, back to Love and Saffron.
Okay, so then I'm going to brighten the mood with Love and Saffron, because this is just a feel-good novel. And there's lots to recommend this book. One, it is short. She wrote it. So Kim Fay is a former bookseller. This is the first time we published her, but I think it's her third book. Oh, my battery is running low. Sorry. Hopefully if my computer doesn't die, I will plug it in. So she's a former bookseller, and she just moved to Los Angeles in the last few years. So the book is set in Southern California, partially in the Pacific Northwest. And it's a female friendship. It's the friendship between a youngish food writer in Los Angeles in the early 1960s and an older writer in the Pacific Northwest. And they become pen pals. They start a relationship through letters. And so the book is told through letters. I feel like we remember at some point we had a question from the audience about books told in letter form. This is one of those, which you don't see that often. She wrote it during the pandemic. Really, it just came out of her, and she was looking for a balm, something to ease her mind, and that works on the reader as well, because you can read it quickly. I always hear about people reading books in one sitting, and I think, I've never done that. Do people really do that? This I did read in one setting, and it was totally satisfying. She gives you so much of their lives through the letters. It's really beautifully done. What starts as a superficial relationship becomes very deep. Plus, there's the nostalgia of the 1960s, Los Angeles in the 1960s. She based these two characters on real people. One, I think, was a great aunt of hers. The other was a food writer. I can't remember her name, but she was a real woman. She's still alive. And she wrote for the LA Times in the 60s and 70s about food about Mexican food, but food from other cultures, introducing that to the LA audience in a very mainstream place like the LA Times. So there's so much food in here. There's so much nostalgia. It's just a really delightful, satisfying read. And I have my counterpart in the Bay Area, Wendy. I'll put it this way. She feels about this book the way I feel about Still Life. So if she were on here, this would be the book she would be talking about week after week. I may have to do that in her stead. And I know Adrian is a big fan, so there's so much love for this book. It's the #1 indie next pick for February. And that was just genuine bookseller love from indies around the country, not just the West Coast, but the whole country. So if you're looking for a book like this, you know the reader. If you like the writing of Ruth Reichl, you like Lori Colwin, you like J. Ryan Stradle, one of my dear favorites here in LA, you'll love Love and Saffron. So Kim Fay's Love and Saffron, it is on sale tomorrow. And it's like a little jewel of a book, a gem.
I know, it's really cute.
Like
They
literally
really did a
inside,
nice job
yeah.
on the packaging on that. And it was
Yeah,
Beth
yeah.
Doherty who was the one that asked about the letters, and she's watching, Tom. So good on that.
Awesome. Well, here we have a new addition to the canon.
Yes, to the books and letters. So there you go. And I was going to say something else, but now I forgot. So must not have been that important. Losing my mind these days. Anywho, Kim, you want to go next?
Okay, my first pick is a debut, Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. Vladimir is mordantly funny and subversive. It takes place at a liberal college in upstate New York, where a 60-something-year-old department chair is accused of inappropriate sexual relationships by several former students. The unnamed narrator is his 58-year-old wife, also a literature professor, who, while dealing with this crisis and its undesirable effects on her, also becomes sexually obsessed with a hot new young professor, Vladimir. As her desire and her anger spin out of control, this mesmerizing story becomes more and more provocative and outrageous as it examines power and desire, personal agency, campus cancel culture, intergenerational conflict, aging, and class divides. As one reviewer noted, like the man she shackles to a chair in the prologue, once this narrator has you, she won't let go. It's a remarkable debut.
I love it. It's the flip of Lolita, right?
Sort of, except he's, a lot older.
Older, right? Yeah, he's not like
but,
he's not creepy young kid.
Yeah, it's wild, but it'd be such a great book club book because it examines so much of what's going on today, and it's just so good. I can't even tell you.
I love it. I watched this really interesting thing that Simon Karp is his last name. They do this great thing on Facebook. The word according to Karp. Jonathan Karp.
Jonathan Karp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he did a whole thing on how they chose this cover, which I think was fascinating. The different iterations that the cover went through. They nailed it.
It's totally transgressive. It's just outrageous.
I love it.
And so the narrator is just, she's hysterical. She's kind of awful, but you kind of like her too.
I love that. I love that. And Beth Johnson is on here, Kim, saying, thanks to you. She read The Cat Who Saved Books and it was out of her usual reading, but such a nice experience. So thanks, Beth.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Nice.
I love when we have the recurring people showing up and talking to us. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Amanda, what's your next one?
Back at it. All right. So my next book that I have here to present is called Origin, A Genetic History of the Americas by Jennifer Rath. So I think this book is really interesting. So Origin is the story of the first people that were in the Americas. So why and how they made the crossing, how they dispersed south and just across the entire North and South America, how they lived, and based it completely on complete genomes. So it's a glimpse into how they use genetics to reveal the history and the evolution of North and South America. 20,000 years ago, the first people crossed the bridge from Siberia into Alaska. Hello. And then they dispersed southward. I just think this is a really interesting and unique book to give us a slightly different perspective. And I just think it's really interesting. Everyone is really interested in genetics right now. That's like, going your 23andMe and your ancestry. That just tells you a little bit about it. So to be able to use this kind of, this technology that we have now to really dig deep and, to learn more about our past and our history. So I think this is just kind of a really interesting read. It's just super fascinating. It's exciting to have.
I love it. but we just were contacted. Both my daughters did 23andMe. So they were just contacted by a connection that none of us knew about. So there might be some very interesting great grandfather history that we might be unfolding here.
I found
great grandfather. They did everything back in the day. I thought
I know that's
Closeman.
what I said. Yeah, it's
we have one too. When I did mine, and so my grandmother has a sister.
Not on my side.
Not on his side. Not on his side. My mother's mother. Thanks, Dad, for highlighting that. That a sister popped up for her, a half sister.
Yeah.
That we did not know about. One cousin mentioned something like, oh, I remember somebody saying something once, like 50, 60 years ago.
Right.
But
So
no idea who this person is. So there you go.
Those family trees.
Oh, I love it.
As an original American, I'm curious about this book.
With that note, Gabe, you're next.
Okay, I'm gonna share screen and sorry, I wasn't sure if Tom was gonna be here or not. I'm gonna make sure we didn't miss Mike Nichols.
Oh, I was gonna say that about Love and
Thank you,
Saffron.
Gabe.
That's what I forgot, but I was gonna wait till it was his turn. It's like, is Love and Saffron gonna be his new Mike Nichols? Love you, Gabe. I'm so glad.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Nicely done.
But you're here, Tom. So
yeah, I love it.
So my next book is for those who don't know, it's an indie discovery pick. The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reed comes on sale tomorrow. It's a paperback original, and it was a book that there are these indie introduces these books that all the publishers of authors who have new books, we submit to this group at the American Booksellers Association, and they read through a bunch of original novels and books, and they pick a few that merit extra scrutiny, or they feel deserve something special. And sometimes we walk away and we don't have a pick at all because there are not that many spots. But this book was resoundingly picked. And it got just everybody who read it has been loving it. It's based on Hungarian and Jewish myths. And it is about a young woman. The novel starts off a young woman of her village, Avika, who is born powerless. So she has no power. And so right away she's an outcast because everybody in the village has got something that they can do. So she's an outcast, and she is also a defenseless woman. And when the king's men come around looking for a virgin to sacrifice, a pagan virgin to sacrifice, the townspeople turn on her and surrender her to the king. And then the convoy is attacked by monsters, and it is only Avika and Gaspar, a woodsman, probably a soldier, she thinks, who was along with her. Turns out he's the disgraced prince. And I'm not going to tell you too much more, but blending, just basically two cultural myths, blending them into one and creating a fantastic tale. It's an adventure. It is a little bit of it's a journey, as these two people band together and, on a united cause, but can either one be trusted by the other? So there's a lot of things going on in this book about trust, about culture, about superstitions, and like all myths, it instructs in its very own way. It instructs, and I just think it was one of those. It's one of those really novels for everybody. I think if you like fantastical books or straight fantasy, I think you'll be drawn to this book. But it's a book that works on a lot of different levels, and the myth element on a broader scale of the universals that it deals with are really spot on. So a lot going on, and excited to have, especially with the Indie Introduces attention, which I think, it's pretty grassroots and authentic love.
No, exactly. And yeah, I've heard good things about this one. And it kind of reminds me, I haven't read it yet, but sort of the Snow Child sort of kind of book, that has that little bit of fantastical, but fairy tale-ish. But yeah, I love those kind of books.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's they have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
I think they explore different things of culturally and stuff.
Right. No, I do love that. Okay, Tom, what do you got?
Well, from the editor and publisher of Mike Nichols comes Chuck Klosterman's The 90s. So Chuck Klosterman, if you don't know who he is, he's one of our very best pop culture critics, just generally cultural critics, but really about pop culture. There's no one better than Chuck Klosterman. So I love that its subtitle is a book, a physical book, which there was a time when we would wonder whether we'd still be producing these crazy things. And then there's the phone on the cover with the landline. So every decade, I mean, the 90s is a fun decade to be nostalgic for. It's all here. OJ's here, Quentin Tarantino, the beginning of Quentin Tarantino, fax machines, all those things, landlines. But he's really talking about, this is the last period when we control technology as opposed to the way we live now where technology controls us. So there really is something special about that period. And you can debate when decades begin. It didn't begin on January 1st, 1990. He says it began when the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was a couple years before that, and ended with 9/11. At least that's how he defines the 90s into 2001. But it's fun, it's funny, super smart. I love the quotes on the back. There's this review especially, as in his previous books of cultural criticism, Klosterman delivers a multifaceted portrait that's both fun and insightful, a fascinating examination of a period still remembered by most, refreshingly free of unnecessary myth-making. So Chuck Klosterman's The 90s. He's one of those writers that entertains. Oh, there we go. Nice. He entertains and makes you feel smarter as you're laughing and thinking with him through the book. You'd agree, Gabe?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's somebody that we've read. Deborah's been waiting on this book, and he's a cultural critic. He's a fun read. That's the thing. He's a really engaging read. He's a lot of fun. And there's your landline phone, your princess phone.
That's right. Exactly.
My princess phone's over there. It's so weird though to read books. It's like, well, for me, the 90s doesn't seem that far away, but it's so hard to not think about how did we survive without these things? How did we drive around?
Yeah.
How did we get places?
That's right.
We've become and I take my hat off to writers who are able to go back to that and write something authentically that doesn't incorporate some type of that technology. Because how do you even remember what it was like? Yeah, it's fascinating.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what sort of makes you feel what that was like, which is elusive to us because it was. We live so differently now.
Well, that's like the Candy House, the new Jennifer Egan sort of addresses that too, and in more of the futuristic way, but she goes back, it's and when we had, speaking of the princess phone with the big long cords and, we were literally attached to our houses talking on the phone. Okay. Yeah. Beth Johnson is ripping off on you guys too. She says it used to be, oh, she's cracking me up here. Every bell used to mean an angel gets his wings. Now it's Tom showing Mike Nichols.
I love it. Mike Nichols has never been so famous as he is on the Warwick's Tea Time.
Warwick's Tea Time, but she says thanks and that she appreciates you. So
he gets more mentions than Kamala Harris on Fox.
Oh my God. Exactly. Oh my God, it's hilarious. I love this. Okay, Kim, what do you got?
Okay, well, my next pick.
There we go. An angel just got its wings.
Of course, is Love and Saffron, which is the most beautiful book about love, friendship, and food As Tom said, I don't even know how to tell you how much I loved it, and what a breath of fresh air and sunshine it is to read. I mean, it's just a total joy. Deals with, there's travel, romance, love and loss, and it touches on a variety of sort of cultural movements of the 1960s, including feminism, equality, human rights, and the joys of cultural diversity. And you have to love this book. It's just beautiful, and it's little, it's so cute. And you can definitely read it in one sitting.
But sometimes those little books
So
are
glad you enjoyed
powerful
it.
little punches, you
It
know?
is. It
Because
totally is.
I read last week, Andrea, and I was wishing she was on here today because I read the book she sent me, Tides, which she talked about last week.
Yeah.
Which literally it's
Oh,
this
yeah.
little book, but then each page is only like, sometimes only one little paragraph, two little paragraph, but it's so powerful and it's so good. So
Yeah.
little doesn't necessarily mean light, or, you know.
No,
No,
Yeah.
not at all. And
No.
it so resonated with me. I mean, I will never forget it, for sure.
It is that kind of experience. That's great. Yeah. And yeah, if you love, it has so many different angles to come at it. You can be many different kinds of readers and enjoy it.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Oh, Serena, I'm loving that you loved Good Rich People. Did you ever finish it? Because I mean, I'll tell you what, that was a wild
I
ride.
haven't gotten back to it. I have to. I still have
That
to.
is a wild ride. And she read, I think, Kim, you talked about the Finley Donovan book. Finley
Oh, the
Donovan's
first
killing
one.
it. Yeah,
The first one.
Killing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that was so fun.
Oh, yeah, love those books. So
Yeah.
love it, love it, love it. Okay, lightning round. Amanda, take it away.
Here we go. Last one I have for you today.
Last
Super excited to
one.
finally
Ooh.
present this one to you guys. I have been so excited and waiting for it, but here we go. We have two twins, Charlie and Magnolia, whose parents were brutally lynched in the South. This book takes place right on the cusp of the civil rights movement. So Charlie is sent to go live with her Nana in Harlem. And becomes a young Black activist. Magnolia is passing, so she is left with her father's white parents in Georgia and lives on a cotton plantation. So now Nana is dying, and her dying wish is for to be reunited with her long lost granddaughter. So now these twins who knew nothing of their background are now coming to terms with their biracial history and what it means for them, especially in this time of the civil rights movement. So for this one, so it's called Mirror Girls by Kelly McWilliams. And I think it is just a beautiful story. It is wonderfully told. It gives us a very interesting perspective. Kelly herself is biracial, so she used her experiences as being a biracial child in helping craft this beautiful story of these two twins coming to terms with their own identity. So Mirror Girls out tomorrow. Super excited for this one. I can't wait.
Yeah, another great cover. Another really
gorgeous cover, right?
Yeah,
gorgeous cover.
They did a really good job on that one. Sounds like a great story too. Is it YA?
It is young adult. My apologies. Yes,
No.
It is a young adult title.
Okay,
for sure.
I mean, it's still, it could be crossover. I mean, there's definitely crossover.
This is definitely going to be one for a crossover to that adult, for sure. So,
and I'm thinking of people maybe that read Vanishing Half.
The Vanishing Half. Yep.
You know,
perfect.
Could be companion. Another good segue to that. Yeah, for sure.
There's been a lot of stuff about passing. I know there was that Netflix movie also recently. Or show, I don't remember what it was, movie or show, but it was called Passing, same thing, talking about what that means and stuff. So I think it's very timely for this story, and in a, a unique era.
And that 23andMe stuff, finding out those trees.
Yeah.
Those family trees. There's some branches. Boop, boop. Okay. All right, Gabe, what do you got?
I don't need to know, man. Don't need to know. So I'm going to finish off with a paperback reprint of The Kindest Lie by Nancy Johnson. A book that if you mention and talk about The Kindest Lie and Nancy Johnson, people will probably not know who you're talking about. But it's a book that had a lot of really solid sales. It was a book that was recommended by a ton of media outlets, magazines, and newspapers and television news shows around the country. Good Housekeeping, Marie Claire, O Magazine, Good Morning America, Refinery 29, Parade. I mean, Parade, down to Pop Sugar. I mean, it was recommended across the board, very mainstream outlets. And it's a story of a young woman who is building her life. She's a young Black woman. The setting is 2008, and it's a setting, a point in time. She uses the election of Barack Obama to president, and that's pretty much. It's not a political novel. She just uses that as a reference point because the racism really leapt forward in 2008. You know, it really came out how racist America was when Barack was elected. So she's fueling off of that. And so that's the time the story takes place. She's married, happily married with her husband. She's a Yale grad. She's like, I think, a scientist, some kind of science degree. And she is happily married and is about to have her first child with her husband. And she goes back to Indiana, to her hometown, to visit. And as it turns out, Ruth had a child that she gave up when she was a teenager, forced to give it up. She's got a very overpowering grandmother figure in this book, the matron of the family, and who holds a lot of power over everybody in the family, and convinces her to give up the baby, go to college, and have the life that she always wanted. So she's coming to terms with all that and her history, the racism that's coming up. She's got a child, and does she want to get to know this child? There's all those questions come up, as well as the identity of who she is. We got a beautiful quote from Jodi Picoult that we have on the cover and on the side there. It is a book that I don't think, race is a big part of this book. I'm not going to lie. It definitely is. Setting and Black characters and Black issues and the racism that we saw explode when Obama became president. But it's not necessarily a book that beats into that world. It's really a book, again, talking about the universals, and that's what makes a really good book. So this is one of those books that found its way. You know, people found it, found readers, word of mouth, really good word of mouth, a lot of anticipation. So it just, broad readership. I think this is a book that you can, in paperback, it's obviously great for a book club, but pick it up and read it. Not a particularly fat book. It's got a decent page count, and it's 300 pages, 350 pages, but it's a good solid read. And it's going to enlighten, it's going to entertain, and it's going to enlighten, and it's going to make you feel things. Really a solid read, honestly.
Yeah.
First novel with a lot of bite.
Arlene has actually already read it, who's watching with us. So thank you, Arlene, for that. But she wants to know, do you know, Gabe, what's new coming? Is there anything else coming from Nancy Johnson? Do you know?
I haven't seen anything yet, but we're keeping it's going to be, I think the next book we're going to launch in a pretty big way.
Right.
Because I mean, really, I've read a lot of really good first novels. I think the last really good novel I read was Valentine.
Oh yeah, that was so good.
Where you're just like, this is an author who's really.
Oh yeah.
That was.
And I really love City of a Thousand Gates, but this book here is one of those books where you're just like, wow, that is really a mature novel.
Fantastic. And Laura, thank you for ordering. It looks like she might have just ordered Love and Saffron. So there you go. There you go, Tom. Angel's getting its.
Thank you.
Well, wait a minute. Mike Nichols, Angel. I don't know. Love and Saffron. Maybe he's going to get Angel's wings too. Who knows?
Don't tempt me to start talking about the same book every single week.
It'll be
all right,
a
what's
thing.
your lightning round?
So my lightning round is Red Carpet by Eric Schwartzel. So he's a writer for the Wall Street Journal, and he's been covering Hollywood for the last 7 years for the Wall Street Journal. And so Penguin, this is his first book, and Penguin Press has a knack for finding the very best journalists, especially young journalists who are going to suddenly become superstars in that world. He's one of those, because this is a really, extremely deeply reported book about the subtitle is Hollywood, China, and the Global Battle of Cultural Supremacy. So it could not be more timely. And this has been going on since the late 90s, really. He starts off maybe even early, a little bit earlier than that, through the early 2000s. How Hollywood has had to tailor its films for China and make the changes to its films that China requires, or they request, but they require, because in order to get it distributed in, you know, a very lucrative place where we want to be making lots of money like China, they force these changes. So it's you got, and it's filled with great stories of, you know, Matt Damon, Richard Gere, especially because Richard Gere is very outspoken about Tibet. He ran into big problems. Martin Scorsese when he made Kundun. So it's filled with lots of, you know, celebrity Hollywood stories, but really it's a story that's super timely. Obviously, the Beijing Olympics are going on right now. Many compromises, the same kind of compromises that NBC is having to make for the Olympics, I think are similar to what Hollywood has been doing for the last 20 years, and we're not even really aware of it.
That's the scary part.
I know. So that's why this book, it's a very straight, you know, reported book, but you come away with it having learned a lot. He even, you know, it doesn't push it too hard, but, and I didn't know this, Nazi Germany made the similar demands on Hollywood back in the 30s for its films, and Hollywood submitted at that time to those changes, which I didn't really know much about that history. So there is a history of this sort of thing in Hollywood. So you are going to be hearing a lot about this book. The Oscars are coming up soon, so there'll be, you know, red carpet. You know, it's no secret. It's not a coincidence that we're publishing this book just as the Beijing Olympics are coming on and the Oscars are about to happen. So he'll be all over the media. It's a front page review on the New York Times Book Review. I think a week from or this coming Sunday. He'll be all over the media. I expect Fresh Air, NPR, and lots more. So if you're at all interested in what's really happening with China, it's all in here.
And that seems to have the best of like all, because I mean, I can't remember, I was on an event the other day, we were talking about like celebrity gossip. It's kind of like our catnip. We love to just like see what's happening, but this has more some subversive things that are part of that.
Right.
But Beth Johnson,
still,
go ahead.
They still have that appeal too.
Right. Because you're getting a little bit of that celebrity, but Beth Johnson's cracking me up because she says, "But is there a Mike Nichols story in it? It would be a twofer."
I'll be back to you next week on that. I don't think Mike makes an appearance, though it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. There might be a reference in there somewhere. Oh God, poor Mike Nichols.
He has his hands on a lot of pies. I just saw something last week, a couple of weeks ago, about an actor getting slammed for somebody, director, about a movie going to China and the changes that were made. And I can't pull it up in my brain who it was or what it was, but same issue.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's still happening, right? Well, and it happens with it. I mean, all these big media conglomerates are dealing with this. You know, Apple, all of these big companies, Google.
I mean, Squid Game's not probably on there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kim, what do you got?
Okay. My lightning read pick is The Anomaly by I'm going to butcher his name, Hervé Letellier, and it won the French Goncourt Prize in 2020, and it has gotten enormous critical acclaim internationally, including rave reviews by our very own experts, Julie and Adrian. And
the Goodreads of the world are Julie and Adrian. Right?
Exactly.
Who needs Goodreads?
The only reviewers who matter. And I know this book was already talked about, but it's basically a mashup of literary thriller, social satire, existential philosophy, and speculative fiction / sci-fi. The story is addictingly suspenseful, featuring wonderful characters and an increasingly complex plot with a succession of clues and strange coincidences involving the passengers and crew aboard an Air France flight from Paris to New York that goes through an unusually turbulent storm. It's complex. I mean, it's completely original, thoughtful, humorous, and captivating. And it's just fantastic. Just amazing.
It's so good. And Beth Doherty's on here. She's read it too. It's so good.
It's so good.
just-
And it's unlike anything I've ever read before.
Ever. Yeah. I mean,
But-
it is absolutely, and thank you for bringing it back up again, because I think it's one of those things that we all love talking about new stuff, but it's like, there's some stuff that you just, Mike Nichols, for an example, that you just have to keep bringing back up again, because it's just, you don't want anybody to miss it. It's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's one that I feel like that I've had so many different kinds of booksellers urging that book on me, which I will read, but I haven't read yet. And yeah,
And
I can't
it's one
wait.
of those that you have to give yourself the time to read it, because it's not one you can put down and pick back up again, because there's too many things that
Yeah.
are going on that you've got to see
Yeah.
where all the connections come in. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah, it's super layered. And one thing I love about this book is that it has just wide ranging appeal, all ages,
Right.
male, female, it's that kind of book.
there's
that you can
another Kim on here that she loved it, and she says it's a weird, fun read. And yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And you can't give too much away when you're talking about it, or it ruins it for people.
Right.
Because you've got
Yeah.
to kind of discover what's happening.
Yeah,
on
the
your own.
less you know, the
The
better.
better. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
almost one of those things you
Right.
just want to hand to somebody, just go, trust me. Just trust me. Okay, for me, here we go. Got some events that I want to talk about, because that's what I do. Where am I? There we go. Okay, we got down here. Oh, let me scooch down a little bit. Joey Day tomorrow, 6:00. Woo woo, Amanda. The Goodbye Coast. He's gone away from IQ in this one, correct? Yeah,
Correct.
and so this is a standalone Philip Marlowe, but Joey Day is fantastic. We adore him, so can't wait to see him tomorrow night at 6. And then Rebecca Sachs is going to be with us on Wednesday, talking
Yay.
about City of a Thousand Gates.
Such a good book.
Really looking forward to this one. So
Such a good
pop
book.
in and join us if you can live, but if not, they're always on all of our events, well, not all of them, but most of them are always reside on Facebook, if that's where we do them. If I'm allowed to record them, I put them onto YouTube as well. So there's always a way to go back and look at some of these. We've had some really good interviews with people. It's really fun. It's been a really fun thing. But we're going back to some live events.
Yeah.
David Brooks, Cornell West, we're doing. We've got Carrie Maher coming into the store. So
Oh, nice.
starting to do some in-person stuff too. So
Yeah.
we're getting back, but still love doing this. So another great
yeah.
week of recommendations. More good reading ahead. I've been on a roll. I've been reading all kinds of stuff. So some not as good as others, but that's okay. We'll talk about those.
Plenty to read.
Yes, it's like, thank goodness
I
there's
think-
always more to read.
I think there's
So-
so many good books like that came out January, and then February and through
Yeah.
March. I mean, it's like just amazing. I thought like January was slow. Not
I know.
not-
Well, it
not
used to
this
be.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it used to be. Everything is just, there's no norms anymore on what you can kind of predict.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
like whatever
Right.
was before COVID, it's just like I was talking earlier on one of these, it's like August now is like a big month. I mean,
Yeah.
when I'm looking out, there's like tons of stuff coming out in August, which that never used to happen. So
Used to be
Yeah.
like
That's true.
December.
Yeah.
right. So
And so many books that are so good.
I know. And I just want
Yeah.
everybody to read them all.
I know.
That's our
Read-
goal.
Like,
Read them all.
Read them all. Read all these good books. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you for being here. Come join us on some events if you can. If not, we'll see you next week. Same time, same bat channel. Bye.
Bye.